Hello, my name is Justin LeClue, and I'm here today with
Will Sloan.
And you're listening to the Important Cinema Club Public Domain Edition.
For many years, nothing went into the public domain in the United
Criminals.
States.
Criminals.
In the United States.
Yeah.
Thanks to the lobbying of companies like Disney.
Mostly Disney.
Because it was so important to make sure that Mickey Mouse didn't fall into the public domain.
You know what's so funny about that is like no one cares about Mickey Mouse.
Mickey Mouse sucks.
I mean,
wait, okay, I'm sorry.
I like the idea of Mickey Mouse, but it's not like he has any like culturally important work that can't be, how dare it be exploited? Oh, I'm sorry. There's not enough parodies of Mickey Mouse out there. Like, it's endless.
Yeah. Apologies, folks. I'm sure there are some Mickey fans out there. He has some culturally important works.
Woohoo!
The band concert. You remember that one?
No, what's that?
Okay, you haven't explored the Mickey canon.
No.
A couple of years ago, things started going into the public domain again.
Thank God.
In fact, Steamboat Willie himself is in the public domain.
Oh, and man, there's chaos in the streets, right? No one cares.
And that's why every year there's a new, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Yes.
Steamboat Willie Massacre.
That's just completely drowning out the original great works. No, it's not. No one cares.
And it's funny with stuff going into the public domain because it's just the 1928 version, and now the 1929 version. This is the first year that Mickey Mouse's speaking voice went into the public domain, and it's not the speaking voice.
Hey, it's me, Mickey Mouse.
That is basically his first speaking voice, yeah.
What happens when Superman goes into public domain? And to that I will say, he can't fly.
He can only leap tall buildings at a single bound, I think.
Yep, that's pretty much
he's
it.
He's not from Krypton yet.
No. Kryptonite was created in the radio show. That's a little ways off.
But anyway, we haven't even announced what this episode is. We are looking at some of the cultural objects that went into the public domain in the United States this year, 2025. Stuff that came out in 1929.
All right, a little history on the public domain. You mentioned it was Disney. That it was wild that it was 14 years, and then you could renew it to a maximum of 28 years for a while, and then it became longer than that, and then it was the death of the author plus 50, and then Sonny Bono did the death of the author plus 70.
Yeah.
Which is
right before he shuffled off this mortal coil.
The copyright, the public domain guys got him.
Yeah, but now things are going into the public domain, so watch out for the COCOANUTS bloodbath.
Well, you sent me a link that people are already jumping on the COCOANUTS.
Yeah. So I'm in a Marx Brothers Facebook page, and somebody posted. I'm not the world's most active member, but I'm there. And somebody because I like to keep up what's going on in the world of the brothers Marx. Somebody posted that somebody's already put out the COCOANUTS in 3D on Blu-ray.
Oof.
Which is great because I don't know if you guys have seen the COCOANUTS. It doesn't look that good.
You know what? It may be good for 3D because that camera ain't moving. It's locked down, just filming what's going on.
But anyway, on this episode, we're going to be talking about 3 of the movies that went into the public domain officially this year in the U.S., that is.
I can't wait to talk about All Quiet on the Western Front.
Oh, no. It was only the book
that went in the public domain. Yeah. I was jumping on a bomb. I'm like, Will, don't watch it. It's only the book.
Yeah, we were going to watch that, but instead we watched Hallelujah by King Vidor, Blackmail by Alfred Hitchcock, and The COCOANUTS featuring the Marx Brothers, and just as importantly, directed by Robert Florey.
Who we did an episode on and we love and still does not have, I think, the, cult group of appreciators that he deserves.
Yeah, and I was kind of hoping that I might, now that I've been Robert Florey pilled, because Robert Florey directed such films as Murders in the Rue Morgue, The Beast with Five Fingers, The Face Behind the Mask, Life and Death of a Hollywood Extra, one of the most visually dynamic filmmakers in Hollywood history, I would say.
One of the proto-movie brats, too. He wrote books in French about the history of Hollywood.
So I was kind of hoping, now that I'm Florey-pilled, that the COCOANUTS would reveal new depths.
Yeah, you were messaging me being like, hey, if you squint, there's a little bit of Florey there.
In the first minute.
I will say that this seems to have been butchered by whoever edited this, because you can start to see camera moves begin and they cut right away. Almost as too slow, let's do something else.
Okay, but before we get to the COCOANUTS, stuff that's in the public domain, the public domain is a vast and complicated category because there's stuff that's inarguably in the public domain, and that's stuff from 1929 and before. And then after that, there's a whole vast gray area of companies that went out of business, movies that didn't have a copyright notice added to them.
And that's doesn't matter anymore because now things automatically are copyrighted when you create them. You don't have to mail it to yourself or anything like that. There doesn't need to be a copyright notice on the movie. Copyright is implied now.
The most famous example is Night of the Living Dead, because when the distributor bought it, they changed the title from Night of the Flesh Eaters. I believe that's what it was called.
It was something like that. Yeah.
The original title had copyright, 1968 or whatever. And then they changed the title card, but they didn't put a new copyright notice on it. So theaters just started playing it. They lost the copyright. Roger Corman's Little Shop of Horrors, he didn't register it for copyright.
All of the films that Roger Corman produced through his company at that time didn't have any copyright notices on them because he didn't think there was any value beyond them just playing in theaters.
Right.
So like once that run was done, he was done with it. And that led to many a argument, especially when a little film called Little Shop of Horrors became a hit Broadway or off-Broadway play and then a big budget movie.
That's right. And then there are so many movies that, because companies have gone out of business, because people have died, the chain of ownership becomes ambiguous. So for example, so many of the like independent martial arts movies that came out in Hong Kong and Taiwan.
I mean, I would say that led to the proliferation and the success of a lot of martial arts films, the assumption that they are in the public domain, hence that they were watched as much as they are.
And then, of course, there are also people who claim the copyright because these are sort of vulnerable movies and unscrupulous people.
Don't say his name.
People like...
He will rise from the grave.
Well, I'm only going to say his name one time because if you say it 3 times, then he rises.
Yeah.
People like Wade Williams and his damnable heirs who deserve...
Parody, satire.
Deserve to be in hell with him. Parody, satire.
What gall to be like, we own these films.
I know.
When you clearly don't.
Well, the Ed Wood movies are an interesting case because Wade Williams, like the Ed Wood movies were treated as public domain for years because the companies that put them out went out of business. Typically, drive-ins would just play them.
And the argument would be, like, in a lot of stuff that's in the public domain, that's how it becomes popular, is that it can play on television just endlessly because no one has to pay for the rights of them.
Well, this is what happened with It's a Wonderful Life.
Yes.
So It's a Wonderful Life was thought to be public domain for many years. That's how it became the Christmas classic that it is.
It was until...
It just played on TV. Then some company was able to establish that actually they owned something related to that movie.
Yeah.
So now, if you go on, and this is a relatively recent innovation, if you go on any big streaming site, Amazon Prime, Tubi, you will find 2 versions of It's a Wonderful Life, the full version and the abridged version. I swear to fucking God, there's a version of It's a Wonderful Life that cuts out the whole, like, oh, what if he was never born section, which is the whole point of the movie.
We think the public domain is good. Things should go in the public domain.
I think so.
Because, like, these, like, companies decades down, it's not, no one who had anything to do with the production is making any money. What? They shouldn't get a dime from that stuff.
Yes, but here's the complicated part. It's like, if under the current system, if there's nobody who's sort of like guaranteed to be the sole owner of it, guaranteed to make some profit about it, is it just going to like go to the winds? Like there are something like 80-90% of silent films are lost because companies didn't see any value in it. And like, let's say Warner Brothers loses the rights to like everything from before 1940 goes into the public domain. Who's there to take care of that material? Who's there to take care of those negatives?
But it's not
stuff?
Warner Brothers because they don't care about that stuff.
They've got a big vault and they think but that's their IP.
Yeah, but they don't feel there's any money to be made in that. Who will take care of it? Here's the thing. Anyone can take care of it. Me with a film scanner can take care of it. If those things go in the public domain like now and they're known, I think people, like if you look online, they like scan it, they remaster it, they put it out there for like to be consumed by the public because people are just passionate about those things.
You trust the public.
I do, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. More than the corporations, 100%.
Yeah.
Because they don't think there's any value in that. Look at Warner Brothers just taking stuff off of their streaming services. Where does that go then if it's not on any official channel? It's gone.
Yeah. Who's to say that Warner Brothers... you know what? Forget. I'm not going to continue being
I like this devil's advocate that you have. Because you don't agree with that.
No, I don't.
I mean, if we could show that there's money in it, but it's not really enough money for them want to go and do what needs to be done with all of these. So like silent films, no, nobody wants to watch those. Those silent films were also the ones that were lost. Were often lost because like after they would play, they just, there's no second life for them. There was no video. There was no aftermarket. That's why they're basically gone.
One last interesting public domain case that I want to raise, Charlie Chaplin. So everything from before City Lights is in the public domain right now, supposedly. But of course,
some people out of the woodwork.
well, Chaplin, I don't necessarily know if this is why he did it, but the fact is so the circus is technically in the public domain if you have a version of the 1927 release of the circus, but nobody does.
Yeah.
Because that version was taken out of circulation. He owned every print, and sometime in the 60s, he put out his new version of the circus, which has a new opening title sequence, new score.
Oh, what's this? I just got Night of the Living Dead. Oh, yeah, I just got remastered, putting it in. What the hell is this? There's a whole bunch of new footage in this.
That's right. So in the late 90s, some of the people who made Night of the Living Dead, not George A. Romero.
John A. Russo.
That's right. The other guy.
Yeah.
He came together and said, I want to reestablish some copyright of my new version of Night of the Living Dead, and shot a whole bunch of new scenes.
Awful.
But like with Chaplin or someone like that, you can't take a scene from the Gold Rush, from any version of the Gold Rush you can find right now, because the versions of the Gold Rush that are in circulation were sort of assembled later, right?
Now, is there like different... I mean, we can't know because that other version doesn't exist, right?
The 1925
So they could technically
release.
claim... Because like...
That's right.
Did he re-edit them?
So
is that claimed?
In 1942,
Yeah.
Chaplin came out with a re-release of the Gold Rush that was like 15 minutes shorter, and he narrated it. Because at that time, a silent film had never been re-released in the
So it's
sound
15
era.
minutes shorter. So that's an issue. But what if I turn the sound off?
He reassembled it.
The
right?
footage, yeah. But I would say, isn't the Gold Rush one of those that like, can you go on YouTube now and find a million versions of the Gold Rush on there?
Well, this is another thing about the public domain. It's like,
It's nebulous.
if you want it to be,
Yes.
98% of movies are in the
Public domain, yeah. Well, I'm saying like, what is on YouTube right now? That is, I think, like
Right.
the arbiter of like, no one is hunting this down, trying to take it down.
And that is most movies,
Yes.
frankly. And
You'd be surprised that some are not like that.
I don't know, TV movies from the 70s.
Yes.
I could put Bud and Lou, the TV biopic starring Buddy Hackett.
I think it's up there, probably.
I could put that on YouTube right now and nobody's going to hunt it down.
That's good.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
Because what is the alternative? That someone's like, where is Bud and Lou on what streaming service on Pop
and you have to
Lou?
depend on the alleged copyright owner who forgets that they even owned Bud and Lou in the first place.
I mean, just as of this recording, finally, the company that owned tons of classic Hong Kong films is like, all right, we will finally release them after years.
That's like Hard Boiled, The Killer.
Yeah, Peking Opera Blues, a Chinese ghost story.
Some of the most important Hong Kong movies ever made were just owned by a company.
That were like, we're not a movie company anymore, so we don't see the value in licensing these out.
Or right now, Elaine May's The Heartbreak Kid.
Yeah.
Is just owned by
A pharmaceutical company, I
a
believe.
pharmaceutical company owns it, and they don't care.
There should be a rule of like, you know how like, hey, if you don't make a movie with Spider-Man in this many years, it goes into the public domain. Like you need to keep it in
I agree.
circulation or it just gets added into circulation.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think that, if Warner Brothers says we're not going to release Batgirl or Coyote versus Acme,
It becomes public.
yeah, it should just
100%.
have to go. It should have to go on YouTube automatically. That's what I think.
I 100% agree, and that's why me and Will are running for Congress. We'll be bought out very quickly.
So let's talk about the movies we watched. What do you want to start with?
Why don't we start with Hallelujah? Let's start with like the big meaty one that's like, oh boy, me and Will are talking about this.
Well, I mean, what is there to say about this that hasn't been said a million times?
Yes.
It is progressive in some ways. It is of its time in other ways.
Racist, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a movie people don't know. It's an all-black musical directed by King Vidor. All the movies we're talking about today came out in 1929, and this was like King Vidor. I don't think we've ever talked about on this show. I think he's a great director.
Well, I mean, we should.
Yeah,
at some
I
point.
love him. The Crowd is the
Yeah.
one that people talk about all the time. That's a sound. Wait, that must be in the public domain now too, right?
I'm sure it is.
All right.
Gold Venture Video.
The Crowd coming soon.
But this story, it's an all-black musical, as you said. It unfolds in a plantation community. The main character is one named Zeke, who works on the plantation and becomes a preacher after an incident where he makes some money, him and his brother, selling cotton, and they go into town to the local den of vice, and they lose a little bit of money because of Hot Shot, the big hustler.
Yeah.
And Zeke is also tempted by Chick, played by Nina Mae McKinney, who is often billed as the Black Garbo. And she's a flapper girl of loose morals who is Hotshot's girlfriend.
We should point out that all of these people that we see working in the field, they love it. They have no problems with it.
Right.
Yes.
It is classic, like, antebellum South kind of stuff. After this incident, Zeke has had money stolen from him. He shoots a gun, but instead of hitting Hotshot, he hits his brother. And so that leads him in remorse to become a preacher. And, he has great success as a preacher. He thinks he wins over Chick, the flapper girl, to be on the side of God. And so he runs away from his family that he's got and he marries Chick. But then things don't go too well, and then I'll leave the rest for you to discover. Now, the stuff that's good about the movie is obvious. It's like nobody... And the stuff that's bad about this movie is obvious.
Yeah, very obvious.
This was the first all-black cast movie that was being released, like... to white theaters.
If you look at Wikipedia, it's like there was one that came out before this from another studio.
Okay, yeah. Anytime you say the first of anything,
they're like, well, actually.
And then somebody can also say, well, there was a whole industry of race pictures.
We've talked about Oscar Michaud before.
Yeah. Yep. Nevertheless, this was a movie of this scale, with a director of the level of King Vidor, who had recently directed The Big Parade, the highest-grossing film of the silent era. So he had like
a cachet to come and say, I want to make this movie. And the studio was like, is it sexy? And Kim Vidor's like, sure. It's about, the sexual mores. And they're like, all right, you can make the movie then.
You're right. But the studio wasn't thrilled about it.
No,
they were like, this would never play in the South.
Yeah.
And it didn't really.
No.
The stuff that's bad about it, I mean, you can read this in any article ever written about it.
Yeah, it's all stereotypes. And,
licentious, leering, lusty, like, women. And
or they're just kind of, like, ignorant and happy in their situation.
Or they're gamblers or, all of that. So a problematic artifact, to be sure.
But you get to see all these performers on screen.
Yeah, after this, in a major Hollywood movie, like, what else is there with this much black talent in it? There's like Cabin in the Sky 10 years later, which is similarly problematic, also has a lot of talent in it. And then after that, like...
Otto Preminger may...
Porgy and Bess.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So you got Porgy and Bess, which is out of circulation completely now.
We talked about that on another episode.
Yeah.
One thing that I think everyone can agree on about this movie is that it looks incredible. It was shot without sound and then dubbed later. So the soundscape is much more sophisticated, especially with the music, than some of the other films we're going to talk about. And just, visually, because he shot it without sound and he was unburdened with, the technical complication of that.
You can do all the tricks you would do in silent film.
Yeah.
And not be worried by that.
Yeah. So, like, the last couple of years of silent film with movies like Sunrise, there was a level of visual sophistication that, it kind of got reset.
Yeah, where it's like the cameras are locked down, you're just filming this. The novelty is the sound. Don't try to do any visual tricks or your storytelling kind of like theatrics.
Well, and also because it's like they hadn't figured out the microphones yet, so people had to stand still.
We've all seen Babylon and that famous sequence. We're watching Babylon over and over again.
That's right, we've all seen Babylon.
We've all seen Babylon. Oscar nominated, I think. Probably for something,
yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a token, like, we have to. It's
costumes.
About the movies. Yeah, exactly. So, Hallelujah. This is a question I want to ask you about every movie that we've watched. What does it mean about it going in the public domain? So this was a Warner movie. It was released by Warner Archives. Recently enough, I think.
It was released on DVD in the 2000s as well.
And there's a Blu-ray because they put a new kind of like warning at the beginning of it.
Okay.
Of just being like, listen, this is the period that it took place in. No editing has been done. Just be aware of that before you watch this movie.
What does it mean that this is in the public domain?
Will it get watched more? I don't think it's going in syndication.
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it'll get watched more. I think this is just part of history. I mean, it is a valuable document. I don't want to say it's only a document because I think it is possible to watch this movie and be sort of moved by it and to be especially compelled by the imagery and the music.
But by being aware of what it actually is.
Yeah.
All right. So next up, we have Hitchcock Blackmail. I don't think there's too much to say about this.
Well, yeah, Hitchcock's Blackmail is an interesting case because it was shot as a silent film and then it was partially reshot with sound. This is, of course, one of his British films, and along with The Lodger, is one of the movies where he really solidified that Hitchcock style.
Oh man, love British Hitchcock. The movies are not 2 hours long.
And there's a kind of like snappiness
to them.
There's a lightness.
I would say that this one does have a bit of longueur at times, almost when it's kind of like in love with the idea of some things are done in sound. There's a bunch of like, if you read about it, they're like, oh, one of the actors had to be dubbed off screen, singing in the rain style because she had an accent.
But I liked this movie a lot. There's a lot in here that feels like quintessential Hitchcock to me, like already in its nascent form. I'll just say what it's about quickly. The main character, Alice, she has a boyfriend who's in Scotland Yard, and he's a bit of a workaholic. He's always on the case. He never has time for her. So she decides to, just flirt a little bit with this young artist.
A very ugly man.
Yeah.
It's so funny where I'm like, she's having an affair or, flirting with this guy who's like, eh.
So she goes up to the artist's apartment to see his etchings, and
as one does,
she flirts a little bit, and then he tries to force himself on her,
and she kills him.
She kills him with a knife
in defense.
Yeah, and her boyfriend saw her go up. So then for the next couple of days, and this is when it's really pure Hitchcock for me, when she's like wandering around in a daze. Anywhere she goes, like all she hears is the word knife.
Yeah.
Like when she's sitting, sitting at the table,
they're
knife,
cutting.
knife,
Yeah.
Knife. Knife. I thought
the
that was
butter knife.
So funny. I love that.
How did you like the beginning of the movie where it's like a little silent film disconnected from anything else?
Well, that was when I was wondering if I was watching the right version.
And you get all the Hitchcock like, oh, there's a reflection and the camera like zips around to see the person.
Visually, I actually think this is one of his strongest films.
Oh, really?
I know. I'm going insane here, but there's so much like German expressionist influence in this movie. Like the last, the big chase through the British Museum towards the end, where he's so striking.
He's using the Schuftan process of Eugene Schuftan, the cinematographer that they use on Metropolis, to make everything look bigger by like kind of projecting it on glass, and that's how you get that effect.
And there are so many just abstract visual touches. I'm thinking, for example, there's one scene where there's a phone call where you see two heads in silhouette, basically, one behind, one in front of the other, one talking, one receiving. This kind of like non-literal imagery, I think is really striking.
I love all this stuff, and I wish Hitchcock, because he got so big that he felt his movies had to be big to reflect that kind of importance. Someone took him aside, and I think they should do this with 98% of filmmakers and be like, you got 85 minutes. Like, do what you want to do in 85 minutes.
Although what unites this movie and something like North by Northwest is the sense of humor, the playfulness, and as well as there's a side of Hitchcock that's, and you can see this in like all the intros to his TV show where it's like, well, wouldn't you kill somebody if push came to shove? That sure would be bad if you did that.
I like how this movie ends as well, where it's definitely in that, when did the code start? It feels very pre-code.
Yeah, absolutely.
About the way that it ended. It's not necessarily like, oh, she committed a crime, so she has to pay. What does it mean that this movie's in public domain? I don't think that much.
I think it's...
because a lot of his films have been in the public domain for a long time.
If this movie wasn't already treated as in the public domain...
Yeah, it's probably like tossed in with all the other silent films.
Well, it's like you go to Goodwill and or any Value Village near you, and there will inevitably be like 20 Alfred Hitchcock films, and you'll have the picture of Hitchcock from the 60s on
and
the
you're
cover.
Like, I can't wait to watch my favorite...
Rich and Strange. The Ring, it's called. There are a lot of those silent ones I haven't seen.
Me neither. They were recently remastered a couple of years ago, and they finally got like a new release. I feel like there's an episode there, like an early silent Hitchcock.
I'd love to.
Because I even like past like this, when he's still working in Britain, kind of figuring out all this stuff. And as he even said, like some of his films, he felt he went too far about like the kind of like stylistic quirks. But I love him working in this kind of like, we're locked in, we're in a studio, gives it an artificial feel to it all. I just love that, especially in this early Hitchcock.
Now, the COCOANUTS. I have no notes on the COCOANUTS.
How many times have you seen the COCOANUTS?
A lot.
Really?
Like, probably at least 10 times in my life.
Is it so? It's one that you go back to often.
Well, I had it on VHS when I was a child, and I liked the Marx Brothers.
But
I don't think I ever loved it.
When did you get the COCOANUTS in your Marx Brothers love?
Like fairly early on, just because it was at the video store.
Oh, okay. So it was one of the ones that you could reach to. Who is this, a Warner one?
No, it was made at Paramount, and Universal owns it now.
Okay.
So back
they owned it. Yeah. Now it's ours.
That's right. Yep. That's right. It's mine.
So the COCOANUTS,
Blood and Thunder coming soon.
Wait, does that mean the idea of the Marx Brothers are in public domain?
Probably the Marx Brothers who you see in this movie.
In this specific movie.
This Groucho is in
Because
public domain.
I know that in the comic book, Dylan Dog, super popular in Italy, his sidekick is just Groucho Marx. And when they brought a bunch of issues to North America, they erased his mustache. Like, they redrew it out of fear of being sued.
Interesting.
What are the complications that come along with that?
Well, I don't. It's maybe not Groucho who's in the public domain, but Mr. Hammer, the head of the hotel here in Coconut Grove, Florida, or whatever.
So the Marx Brothers, is this their first feature film?
Yeah, it is. So let me explain the Coconuts. They had made a silent film called Humor Risk.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
Which was made in the 1920s and was never released and is lost. But throughout the 10s and the 20s, they tour. They go from burlesque to vaudeville to the Broadway stage.
Yeah, they're on Broadway by the time they make the Coconuts.
The Coconuts was the second of 3 Broadway smashes that they did. The first one was called I'll Say She Is. The third one was Animal Crackers. In the year 1928, when they were filming The Coconuts, the Broadway show had closed and they were in Animal Crackers on Broadway every night. And then by day, they would film The Coconuts out at Kaufman Astoria Studios in Queens, where we visited last year.
Yeah, that's true. And so this movie, now they said, because there's 2 directors credited, it's not only Robert Florey, because there was another guy who was most famous for stage productions. Mm-hmm. And Groucho said, one of them didn't speak English and one of them didn't get the Marx Brothers. I'm going to say Robert Florey is the one who didn't speak English.
That's right.
And the other guy, who cares about that guy?
Well, the plot of The Coconuts, which is very much just a stage play on film, barely transferred to film.
Yes.
It's set at this hotel in Florida. Groucho is the head of the hotel. Margaret Dumont is there.
Yeah, like all the elements are here, and the people are yelling, "We want more Zeppo! We want more Zeppo!"
There's Chico and Harpo. They come in. I'm not quite sure why they came.
Mm-hmm. It's part of the play.
Yeah,
that's all that matters.
Come in and truly, like, people are coming in stage right, exiting stage left. The frame, I would say the frame is like a proscenium, but
it's not quite a proscenium. No, I think it would be more interesting if it was a proscenium.
Okay. The first 2 musical numbers in this movie are some of the worst I've ever seen.
Yeah, they're just not too hot.
And the first scene is where you see a bit of the Robert Florey magic, by which I mean 2 shots.
I wonder, what their stage play was like. How many musical numbers did they have in their stage play?
I think all these were... this looks to me exactly like what a stage play would be, but I think
were people like, yay, we love these musical numbers on stage?
I just think the energy is so much different in theater. Like, in theater, especially at this time, they would have understood that this is a little bit more of a review. There also would have been, like, an energy from them as performers and the spontaneity that they had that would have sort of sustained it. I think this movie, The Coconuts, which is, it has a little bit of plot, but it's basically a series of scenes. Some of the scenes are funny.
Yeah.
And then
wouldn't the argument be that is most Marx Brothers movies, though?
I think there are some Marx Brothers movies where there's an accumulation of energy. Like Duck Soup, you feel it like rise and rise and rise and rise until in the battle scene that ends it, there's like this feeling of mania.
Yeah.
Or Horse Feathers is similar. And those movies are a little more sophisticated just with how they pace the material. With this one, it's just like scene, 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 scene. And they're not really related. There's no cause and effect.
But there's highs.
There are highs.
Yes. Because the Marx Brothers are still doing their shtick. Groucho's still doing his wordplay.
I mean, I kind of like this movie.
Where does it rank on your, Marx Brothers?
Somewhere halfway.
Halfway. So what's right at the... we know what's at the top. Duck Soup.
Below is I would probably rather watch this than like
later period.
Like Room Service,
yeah.
The Big Store. This is around Day at the Races for me.
Okay, yeah. So right in the middle.
Yeah.
So not... because this has a pretty bad reputation.
Well, it is badly directed.
Yes.
And some of that is just the technical limitations.
The argument would be the other Marx Brothers movies are not exactly razor sharp either.
Okay, but I mean, this one can't even keep them in frame.
No, they can't.
That opening hotel scene, the camera is...
Where's Groucho? Where's Groucho?
It's trying to capture them like a monsoon. The scene early on where the bellhops are all dancing together, I'm looking at it, it's like, why would you put the camera here? It makes no fucking sense. It's completely inept wherever they put the camera. But sometimes the camera, you've just got Groucho and Chico, and they're standing next to each other and they're doing a routine. Then you're golden.
Yeah. And there's parts of that in this.
Why a duck?
Yeah, exactly. So there's classic parts in this, but you wouldn't recommend Marx Brothers to go, it's in the public domain. We can watch it so easily now. The Coconuts.
It wouldn't be the first one I would start with. But I will say, Universal restored this movie a few years ago. And the version that's circulating now looks a lot better than it used to. So it's much more watchable than it used to be.
Like, it was never on any of the Universal box sets?
No, it was.
But it wasn't remastered.
Yeah, it was like mastered from 16 millimeter prints or something.
Okay.
The version that's like on Blu-ray now and is probably coming to 3D soon. But anyway, the challenge for...
Did you buy that 3D Blu-ray?
No.
Okay. Were you tempted?
No.
Okay. All right.
Well, it had this horrible AI art.
Oh, awful. Yeah. So that just eliminates it instantly. Yeah.
But my challenge for listeners to this episode is we want your screenplay, The Cocoanuts, Blood and Thunder. It's in the public domain now. I want to see Mr. Hammer. I want to see all the other characters getting into chaos.
Like, what if The Cocoanuts was a slasher film?
Yeah, let's do it.
Have you had like movies that you're like, I'm excited for this to go in the public domain? Probably not, right? Because who cares? You can watch movies whenever you want.
What does it mean to me?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you?
Not.
Star Wars.
I don't care about Star Wars. Who cares? Star Crash. Now, when does that go in the public domain?
I probably won't be alive to see Star Wars go in the public domain.
No, absolutely not. I mean, George Lucas has not passed away yet, so technically, that plus 70 years.
Oh, does that apply to him though?
Ooh,
well, wait a minute.
Or plus 50 years.
When did Robert Florey die? All I know is the Cocoanuts is in public domain now.
No, but there's a rule where it's like, it's like if they work for a corporation, the corporation technically owns that thing, and it's like on the first release of it. So I don't know. Star Wars going in the public domain, there's a million ripoffs of Star Wars. Like, it doesn't matter.
You're right.
What matters is just that, like, the
so
availability.
let's extend it for a few more years.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm lobbying on behalf of Disney.
So that they can protect Batman.
Yes. Do you think Batman needs to be protected? Because it's only been quality up to now.
I don't think Batman needs to be protected. He can fend for himself. He's beaten so many criminals. He can take on the bootleggers.
Also, when Batman goes in public domain, you don't got the Joker, you don't got Robin.
No.
Batman with the gun that shoots people in coffins.
What's the problem? That's great.
I mean, I love that. Yeah. But that's all you get. So, yeah, I mean, public...
You got the Cocoanuts. Mm-hmm. Again, Cocoanuts, Blood and Thunder. Let's do it.
Yeah, triple bill. Cocoanuts, Blackmail, hallelujah. What a night at the movies that is.
So, do we have any letters?
We do have letters. As per usual, you can send them to us at importantcinemaclubpodcast@gmail.com. Our first letter is from Bob, and he asks, "Hey guys, just discovered your podcast. Love it. Love all the topics you cover, but especially when you discuss the golden age of Hollywood." You know what's funny is that, like, the angriest letters we get are usually topics, for example, like Japanese cinema, or that has very passionate fans. Those and golden age of Hollywood. Those are the two, like, we are the most passionate and will write letters. I assume the golden age of Hollywood people, too, it's like, the last ounce of strength they have before they go off this mortal coil. Are like, you incorrectly said Abbott's third child's name. Of Abbott and Costello.
We're still smarting from an angry comment we got from the writer of an Abbott and Costello book.
Which, if it was a nice comment, you would have bought that book.
I would have.
Yeah. But the letter continues. I have a challenge for you both. Can you create your own perfect Saturday matinee program? Pick 3 of your favorite cartoons, 3 short films. That's tough. A serial, a B movie, and an A movie. Well, let's not do it like each separate. Let's try to build it together of like the best.
Okay. So I'm thinking, and feel free to hop in here and tell me I'm wrong, but I'm thinking like, I want a Bugs Bunny cartoon that's sort of in that like 1940, 1941 range. Like Tortoise beats Hare.
Okay.
You've seen that one, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's classic.
And why don't, listen, I'm not trying to do deep cuts here. Let's say, so I'm programming a Saturday matinee. I'm assuming this is for children.
Yeah.
That's who's coming to see this.
Okay.
And so, because they're getting the whole program here. So, if you do a Looney
Plumbing, we will go.
Yeah, of course, there's Three Stooges one. I was going to say that, like, Duck Amuck is one that you would almost want to throw in there because, like, that is one that if you have not seen that and you are a child, it will open up in your mind, like, the possibilities of animation or even the medium of film that you want. And just think about watching Duck Amuck in a theater because, like, that way it plays.
And then for fun, just to prank the kids a little bit, I'll put in one of the Batman serials. I'll say, kids, you like Batman, right?
Yay!
Yeah, you like Christian Bale. Well, you're gonna love Robert Lowry.
Wait, he said 3 cartoons and 3 short films. So 3 Stooges shorts.
Let's put a Laurel and Hardy in there. Why not?
Laurel and Hardy, and why not have? Let's throw in like a silent, like a Harold Lloyd or a Buster Keaton.
Yeah, sure, something like that. And then, is there a feature that we would show?
Yeah, a B movie and an A movie. So what starts like right from the get go?
What if we put in like a Roy Rogers Western? Like,
so you're thinking it's like a genuine? That would be the B movie, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Or no, Roy Rogers. That's a little bit upper shelf, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be A?
But I want to show them something good.
Yeah. Okay. So you're thinking of like a Will Whitney, Roy Rogers.
Yeah,
film.
like the Golden Stallion.
All right.
And then what's the A movie?
The A. Wait.
The 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T. You don't like that one?
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm trying to show something to kids. You know what? Let's just give him Gremlins 2.
Gremlins 2? Okay. Oh,
Roy Rogers, Gremlins 2.
Oh, okay. I thought we were in the golden age of Hollywood.
No.
Yeah, let's show him Gremlins 2. Why not?
I mean, it's tough to be like, 3 cartoons and then a cereal, and then it's like you assume you're in the golden age of Hollywood, but you know what? I break all those rules.
All right.
After watching all that old stuff. But this is the thing. Gremlins 2 kind of, it reappropriates all that stuff that you've been seeing up until then. You probably even see like Westerns on TV and stuff like that within the context of the movie.
I think that's great. I think I want to go home and do this myself right now.
How does a 5-year-old react to a Roy Rogers film now? I bet you they like it.
Probably.
Because they don't see stuff like that. They maybe have an idea of what the Western is.
It's got, kids can, especially at that age, can be a little weird what they like. Like, they can just fixate on something. Like, they might like the horse.
But yeah, and kids love like the idea. It's like trains, vehicles, cowboys.
That's right.
Because it's like a being of power in their eyes.
That's right.
And like a hero. So that's what they often go. I mean, probably superheroes now. So they may be like, I don't want this. Give me Spider-Man or something like that. And you're like, we gave you Batman.
That's right.
No, not that.
You kids like the Batmobile, right? Well, what if he drives a Toyota? Bum, 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 bum.
The next letter is from Thomas, and he goes, "Hey, Justin and Will. I had a thought or recommendation for an episode. I'm imagining you've heard of the stuntman actor Scott Adkins. I have heard of him. I feel like an episode dedicated to his films would be fun in the vein of your Cynthia Rothrock episode." That was hard, though, Cynthia Rothrock.
Was it hard? I can't really remember.
I feel like Atkins has a type of ability and charisma that would have made him huge in the 80s and 90s. He's had some recent performances in bigger movies, such as John Wick 4, where it feels like they pranked Scott Adkins because they put him in, like, a fat suit for the movie. But he's also had solo films that I really like One Shot and some hitman genre films. Anyway, keep up the good work, Thomas.
Well, we did an episode on the director Isaac Florentine, who did a lot of Scott Adkins' best movies.
He discovered Scott Adkins.
Scott Adkins, I mean, I like Scott Adkins. Based on the films I've seen, John Wick 4 was the one where I thought like he showed the most charisma. Like when you watch Ninja Shadow of a Tear.
Well, yeah, that's when he plays like the flat kind of like leading man.
Yeah, and I love Ninja Shadow of a Tear, and the action is great in that movie, but he's a little wooden. And I haven't seen, like, I've lost touch with his career a little bit. His more recent stuff I haven't seen that much. Has he gotten like better as a screen actor?
Well, I mean, the rule with Scott Adkins, I say, is American accent, no. Any other accent, yes. Because that feels like when he like starts to pile on the charm and he can play like big over the top characters.
Okay.
There is a sense, especially like in many movies, where he wants to be that leading man. So he does the American accent. It's like, can I just be like the big guy? I think at this point, he is a star in DTV world. Like, he's not going to make that crossover at this point.
He has a career that reminds me of Bruce Campbell, just in the sense that, like, in DTV world and to like a small but passionate group of people, he is like
a god.
And it's like, why did he never cross over?
And there was talks back in the day of like, who's going to be Batman? Maybe Scott Adkins?
Well, I saw the video that he posted around that time where he was like, well, rumors have gotten out that I auditioned for Batman. It's true I did, but let's be real. They're not going to let me play Batman.
No. And so, I wish he had a bigger career. I like that he's making movies. He seems to have found like a niche in filmmakers that he works with. I just want him to challenge himself. Like those one-shot films. I like the first one. The second one has a lot of issues. He is slowly going down that like right-wing kind of like filmmaking drain where action movies stars sometimes go to die.
I mean, as long as they're delivering the goods.
Yeah, that's it. Just don't look at any social media posts that Scott Adkins may be doing.
All right,
maybe.
I won't.
I feel like I could pick like movies throughout his career and they're like capturing certain moments like, oh, this is like the dregs. I really like he worked with a filmmaker, Jesse V. Johnson, and they had like a run. And the one Avengement in 2019, like that was one of the best action films of the year. Just like tight. It worked. Really liked that, and he had a very funny accent in that movie.
Oh, and the Pink Panther with Steve Martin. He's in that.
I've never seen any Pink Panther movie. No, I've seen the Clouseau ones.
Okay.
Of course, my friend lent me that. Remember that big soft DVD box? Did you have that?
I had
one?
it, yeah.
That you're like, hey, Pink Panther cartoons. I will not be watching any of these now.
I got that box set for Christmas. Yeah, no, I've seen all that shit.
And that box set is a great discovery of like, well, what is this? Like, you know who Inspector Clouseau is, but then you watch like the Pink Panther, which he's barely in, A Shot in the Dark.
Just here's my tip, folks. If you want to get into the Pink Panther movies, go straight to the Pink Panther Strikes Again. Now that movie's funny.
Wait, so of course the son of Pink Panther one, the
with Roberto Benigni.
yeah, that's the one you want to go to.
And then the Pink Panther 2 with Steve Martin.
Yeah, and Scott Adkins is in the Pink Panther 2, right?
He's in the first Steve Martin one.
I mean, I'm sure he pops off the screen in that one.
The Pink Panther with Steve Martin, a movie that I saw on a plane. And it has the one funny scene where he's trying to pronounce the word hamburger. And he keeps going, hamburger.
And you were just laughing so hard. They're like, you need to stop watching that. We're going to land this play. Here's that much of a distraction. So our next letter is from Eve. And they ask, your Frankenstein episode was delightful, and it took me back to the first time a film ever truly terrified me. I remember being 5 years old at the most, seeing the monster rise and walk right at the camera, and I buried my head in the sofa because I couldn't bear to watch. That's like me watching Jurassic Park was too scary. The Mask was too scary when Jim Carrey puts the mask on.
I mean, when the villain of the movie puts the mask on and he becomes like the evil mask. Now that's scary.
The film in question, the letter writer mentions, was of course the classic Alvin and the Chipmunks Meet Frankenstein, which unfortunately doesn't quite hold up when viewed as an adult, but nonetheless left an indelible impression on me. What are the childhood favorites of yours that you no longer hold to high esteem?
Oh, most of them probably.
Yeah, most of them were bad.
Yeah, I don't know. Probably like baby songs, kid songs.
What about like entertainment? Like
I recently just on YouTube pulled up kid songs. I'd like to teach the world to sing.
I don't know what kid songs is.
Play that. You don't know kid songs?
No.
Well, it's a bunch of kids and they sing songs and they are in different little tableaus and stuff.
Oh, sounds bad.
Yeah, it's for kids.
Kids, yes. We lived through a period of like the 90s. They're like, Alvin and the Chipmunks are back. You guys like these, right?
We're the Chipmunks, Alvin,
and then there was
Simon,
a break,
Theodore.
And then they came back with the movies.
That's right.
Which like
I haven't seen any of those.
No, I haven't seen any of those.
I had on VHS Batmonk, which was Alvin and the Chipmunks do Batman. And that's going to be my answer to the question. I haven't seen it.
I mean, maybe it holds up.
I'm going to say no.
I mean, I could not get enough when I was a kid of the Flintstones.
Oh, yeah.
Like I'd rush home and I'd watch them.
I saw every episode of the Flintstones.
Some people have been like, no, the Flintstones are actually good.
Have you watched it lately?
I like, cartoons these days, they move too fast and there's too many jokes.
Yeah.
Let's get some rock puns in there, please.
It's a living.
That's what we need to bring back, the Flintstones.
Yeah.
Bring them back.
Do we need to?
Yes, we do.
What if you had an iPhone, but it was a rock?
Well, I think we talked about it, but like Seth MacFarlane did a pilot of the Flintstones to bring him back, to which I say, throw that in a volcano and never look at it again.
Imagine it was Bluetooth technology, but they had like a little dinosaur bird who like was next to their ear. See, we should write it.
When is Flintstones going in the public domain? We got to get in on that. But what's interesting is stuff that like you liked as a kid that is good, like The Grinch.
Oh yeah,
Peanuts, the original holiday special.
I mean, I just watched the Chuck Jones Grinch again, this year, and it's fantastic.
Now The Grinch fights Halloween or whatever it's called. Bad.
Yeah, not so good. And the Jim Carrey Grinch.
I mean, we never liked that.
I know
We've talked about
some of you kids love that movie, and I have no idea what you're thinking.
I recently brought this up on the Bay Street Video podcast, and Mark Hansen is like, you ask me this question every 5 episodes, and the answer is no, it's bad.
Kids today love the Jim Carrey Grinch.
I think, I do appreciate, or at least I think I have just a sliver of kind of not awareness or being comfortable enough to look back at things that I like when I was a kid and being like, ugh, that's bad. Like you feel like people hold on to stuff because it's important to them.
Yeah.
And I feel like I can let that go.
Yeah. Well, when I was watching that Kid Songs video,
yeah.
I'd like to teach the world to sing. There were certain moments in it where I thought, oh yeah, I remember being a kid watching this. and that was a nice feeling. But I'm not gonna pretend that like
you're like, this is entertainment. Used to be this. This used to be good.
yeah. No, it's not. Kids today don't need to watch that. They have their own garbage that they can watch.
All right, and the letter finishes up with P.S. Consider doing episodes on directors Haley Garima, Shulia Shang, and Larry Buchanan. I can tell you, me and Will know one filmmaker on that
Larry
list.
Buchanan, yeah.
Larry Buchanan.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to look into the other ones because I love when people recommend filmmakers. I was like, I've never heard of them.
You know, I like Larry Buchanan, but he's never quite got his hooks in me.
I mean, I mostly love Larry Buchanan because of his autobiography, It Came From Hunger,
right?
Where he talks it's like the total filmmaker where he's like, I just love these films. Me and my son, we're cutting away in the night, and then you see the films and you're like, oh.
Larry Buchanan, who, for those who don't know, he's sort of like, you know, you've got Ed Wood, and then 20 rungs below,
way below,
you've got Larry Buchanan. He's somebody who, like, Justin and I, when we're brainstorming topics, he will often come up, and then we'll be like, we just did Ray Dennis Steckler, or we just did this or that.
Ray Dennis Steckler's 20 rungs above Larry. Yeah. The thing about Larry Buchanan films is that there's no fun to be had in them.
Like, what's fun about them is how cheap they are.
And that they exist. And that he was like one of the premier exploitation guys. There's a court case going on. We're making a movie real fast about this and putting it out into the world.
Oh, yeah. Like, for example, he did like right after the Kennedy assassination, he made The Trial of Lee Harvey Oswald, which was his speculative account of what the trial would have looked like.
Boring.
Yeah. Crucially, not a JFK conspiracy theorist.
No. Because that wasn't in the air yet.
Yeah.
There wasn't enough of it.
Yeah. And he did I haven't seen it, but he did his Marilyn Monroe biopic.
I'm sure it's very respectful.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for that letter. And on our Patreon episode, it finally begins. Me and Will are talking about Neon Genesis Evangelion.
That's right. We're going to talk, 4 or 5 episodes at a time, and we're going to do it every other week.
Yes. So if you're like, no, I don't want you talking about this at all, then you don't need to listen to that episode. We appreciate your patronage. But even if you're not interested, the whole gimmick here is that Will knows nothing of this. I know a little bit about it, and we're just discovering it together. So you can check that out at patreon.com/theimportantcinemaclub.
And that's right. And it's because you can listen to people who know Neon Genesis Evangelion.
In and out.
Yeah.
But
not
us.
What if you heard 2 bozos?
Yes, that's right.
So next week, we've been doing periodically episodes where we revisit filmmakers. Filmmakers who we'd like to take another crack at. Filmmakers who we might not have quite done justice to.
I feel like we did justice to this filmmaker. But we're going back.
There's always more that can be said about David Cronenberg, and we're gonna have a very special guest on.
Oh, could it be Mr. Cronenberg himself?
No.
Oh, no. Maybe it's somebody who recently wrote a book about David Cronenberg. Yeah. So mostly it will be us asking her questions.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's what we're gonna be doing next week. It'll be David Cronenberg Revisited. So until then, my name's Justin Clue.
I'm Will Sloan.
Thanks for listening.
Well, it's January at the movies.
Oh, this is the exact topic I was going to say. I was going to say, can we do a new, back matter, which is like once a month, let's look at the box office of the movies and see like what's come out and discuss what's at the top, what's at the bottom.
Man, I love January at the movies because listen, aren't you tired of all the Oscar movies?
Ugh.
You've gone out, you spent your whole evening at the Brutalist. You've watched Emilia Perez. I haven't, but you have. You've watched Conclave. I haven't, but you have.
Yes.
And now it's time for some fun. Let's get that pompous shit out of here. And it's time for our old friends like Jerry Butler, Mark Wahlberg, Mr. Melvin Gibson are back. The kings of January.
So I'm looking here at the domestic box office. Number 1 at the box office this weekend, Den of Thieves 2.
So you saw Den of Thieves 2?
I do. Me and my friends, we love Den of Thieves. Love it. We all got back together.
I'm ashamed to say I watched Den of Thieves Part 1 for the first time this weekend.
What did you think of it?
I really liked it.
I think it's really fun.
It's super fun. And I only wish I saw it in 2018 when it came out and had it sneak up on me.
We were hooting and hollering because we didn't expect it at all.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I've had years of people saying Den of Thieves is awesome. Christian Petzold likes it. He likes it. And it's like, I don't care. And I heard for years, it's like,
people are telling you need to see it. And what you say to that is, then I won't watch it.
I'll say, I'll get to it.
Yes. Yeah.
And they
you guys already like it? That's fine. Let me find something else.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
The meatball heat. But I wanted to be in on Den of Thieves 2, so I watched it. Very entertaining.
Yeah. I will say Den of Thieves 2, not as good as Den of Thieves 1.
I agree.
Oh, did you see Den of Thieves 2?
I saw it last night, yeah.
Oh, I think
I enjoyed it.
It does what it, sets out to do. I just wish there was a little bit more. It doesn't have that kind of like spark that Den of Seas 1 had. Maybe not enough Big Nick, played by Jerry Butler, in it doing a thing.
Well, it's interesting the approach they took, because the first one very obviously was derived from Heat.
Oh yeah, it's like a Heat fan film basically.
And this one is Miami Vice.
Kind of. It's
like,
also
like the whole mood piece element of it.
I would say that it's also like, people have said this, so I'm just cribbing them. It's very like Euro crime, like Rififi, Jean-Pierre Melville.
Yeah.
A lot of very little exposition, which I really enjoyed about it. So we were thinking about this watching it, of like, if you have not seen Den of Thieves, you will be so lost for like 40 minutes. You're like, who are these characters? What is going on? There is a very, very minor character that appears at the beginning of, did you notice it? Like a stripper from the first movie?
Yeah.
I'm glad we watched it right before we went, because I would have been like, who is this?
I was glad I was sitting in the theater thinking it can't be.
Yes, and that's who it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Den of Thieves 2 is really good. I like that it's number 1 at the box office. The people in front of us who weren't ready for it seem very confused.
I would say that the movie, like the whole mood piece element of it, the like the vibe quality that it's trying to get for the first half, I think it could have succeeded a little better.
Yeah, I agree. I think when we watch Den of Thieves 1, the thing that we love about it is Jerry Butler, kind of like an agent of chaos in this very po-faced movie.
Yeah. And it's like, with a movie like Miami Vice, I feel like, and some of Michael Mann's other movies, I feel like Mann sort of sells the melancholy of it, the sort of existential angst of it a little more than this one does.
Yeah.
Which remains like the meatball Miami Vice. but I don't know.
I love meatball flavored things.
Well,
so.
hey, like I love Gerard Butler. Ice Cube's son is good fun
very
too.
Good. Slowly morphing into just Ice Cube.
Yeah.
Like you put sunglasses on him.
And the heist that makes up
so good.
the centerpiece is excellent.
Yeah, very, very good. And so that's number 1. Number 2, Mufasa the Lion King. Get that out of here, Gar. No one wants to see this.
Well, yeah, I mean, after number 1, it's like a lot of holiday leftovers.
Yep. I mean, you'll be seeing Mufasa the Lion King, right?
No, why would I see that?
But our upcoming episode on Barry Jenkins.
Oh yeah, I guess this is.
Did you read that article about him being like, the script was so good?
Yeah.
That was a real
to a bigger house.
Because then he's like, oh yeah, we watch Bella Tarr films. That's what inspired us about the long shots in the movie. And
I don't believe it.
Get out of here. No, thank you.
I mean, the other big movie that opened this weekend, which flopped, was Better Man, the Robbie Williams biopic.
Terrible. Bad.
Which
we have friends who love it. Did you see it?
No, I would like to see it.
Yeah.
A lot of people
Good luck.
like it. Well, not a lot of people, because a lot of people haven't seen it. But
No,
some people like it.
I mean, a friend of ours says he's like one of his favorite movies of the year.
I can understand why Better Man flopped.
Yes.
It's pretty
No
obvious.
one knows who Robbie Williams is.
No one knows who the idea of imagine this as a pitch. It's like it's a music biopic, but for reasons unexplained, the musician is a monkey.
Yeah.
And nobody comments on this. That's a hard sell, even if they were making it about Paul McCartney.
When
and
Robbie
Beyonce.
Williams came out at the premiere in Toronto that we saw, he said, I'm very popular in other places. It was like a Jeb Bush, please clap moment.
This must be humiliating for him.
I mean, you know what? How's it doing in the UK? I'm sure it's big in the UK.
Probably. I don't know.
They're just not going to make its money back. And I mean, they knew what they were doing, because at first they're like, it's an awards contender. And then they're like, let's dump it in January. They know what they have.
But also in terms of January releases, are you excited for Flight Risk?
Oh, so excited.
Yeah. That trailer.
Have you seen the new cuts of the trailer? It was like, where it's like, you know, you're going to pay for the whole seat, even though you just need the edge.
That reveal where it's like, what if Mark Wahlberg was bald?
I am seeing it. It's opening in 4DX.
Oh, man. So you're going to move with the plane.
And 4DX, I believe, will spray water in your face. I've never done 4DX before.
I did 4DX last year to see The Beekeeper because it was only playing in premium formats, which is ridiculous. And there was a moment in The Beekeeper where water sprayed in my face, and I thought, I don't like this.
I'm sure I'm not going to like it. These unpleasant people on screen doing that.
Yeah, I just turned off all the shit. I just watched the movie, you know.
Did you see the trailer for, speaking of The Beekeeper, the same director and Jason, they're just doing The Beekeeper again under a different title.
About human trafficking. The right-wing cause du jour. And do you know who wrote that movie?
Yeah, of course I do. Sylvester Stallone himself.
Can't wait.
Wait, isn't it somebody else funny that wrote it? It's Chuck Dixon. You would know who that is. He's a famous comic book writer.
Right, so the two of them
got together.
Yeah.
Is this an old script that Stallone... Wait, wasn't human trafficking treated very sensitively in Rambo Last Blood?
Yeah, that's right. Maybe it's an old script, but I just feel like human trafficking is kind of like the right-wing cause.
That's the right thing cause to them now.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what they're obsessed with, and that's like, save our children, taken to like the wildest extreme in these movies. Will it have the same joy as The Beekeeper of like Hunter Biden being killed as Hillary Clinton looking on?
Probably not, but I'm excited for it.
Is there any other January movies that you're excited for? It's mostly Flight Plan and Den of Thieves, right?
Yeah, that's about it.
We used to be swamped in January with like, these are the trash, come to the movie. And it's so bad that like Cineplex, the only chain in Canada, is like, on Tuesdays it's $5 like it used to be until February.
Please come.
Yeah, please come. Come and see, I don't know, Kraven the Hunter or Sonic 3. Gladiator 2, it's still in theaters. Come and see it.
God, what a garden of delights.